Where are we off to? The Environment Bill. This one?
Yep, that's it.
Members, we now turn to the Environment Reporting Bill. When the committee was last considering the bill, it was debating the question that Part 1 stand part. I call Dennis O'Rourke.
Mr Chairman, I only wanted to speak about Clause 3 of the bill, which is, of course, the purpose clause. Rather, it's supposed to be the purpose clause of the bill, but in fact now it only includes part of subclause A of the original version and simply states that the purpose of the bill is to provide regular reports on New Zealand's environment. If you compare that with the original, we see first of all that the words "as a whole" have been deleted from subclause A, and you would ask the question why. And in the explanatory notes to the bill, you simply read that this is done to simplify the bill. Well, I thought it was pretty simple as it was already, and that the words, removing the words "as a whole" is a mistake, because those words are important. They would require, in my view, a more holistic approach to reporting under the bill. And it's not good enough, I think, to do only some environmental reporting and leave out topics that the government actually doesn't want to be reported on. And it's also not good enough to report on topics in isolation to each other without a big picture reporting mechanism, such as, for example, on the effects of climate change as a result of some of the more specific reports. I also note that subclauses B, C, D and E in the original clause are not included either. So therefore, not only is reporting on the environment as a whole removed, but the subsidiary reporting on specific listed domains in B are not referred to as a purpose at all any longer. And in C, the requirements for independence, fair and accurate reporting as a purpose are also removed. And yet these are some of the most important parts of the bill. The truncation of the purpose to what was just 3A without the words "as a whole" in them renders the purpose statement in the bill virtually meaningless in my view, adding no more actually than what you read in the title. So it's hardly worth having that as a purpose statement at all. But more importantly, it now fails to state clearly that there are, or rather should be, dual purposes in the bill, not a single general one as appears there now. And the first of those is reporting on the environment as a whole, and secondly, reporting on the named specific domain areas. The amendments to Section 3 are like, I think, having a car which stops due to some sort of defect. And then instead of fixing the defect, the engine, the gearbox, the drivetrain and so on are removed as a means of making the defect disappear. But in the process, of course, it makes the whole vehicle useless. And that's what's been done with Clause 3. It was a useful clause and now is virtually meaningless. I'd like to see at least the first three parts of the original subsection A, B and C reinserted so that it was a more meaningful purpose statement. But the real reason, of course, for these amendments is what is interesting, because I think it's simply to hide the fact that later in the bill, overall reporting on the environment is deliberately to be avoided by the government because the government actually knows that its record on reporting on the environment generally is poor. And to remove independent reporting on specific domains and topics is also a very poor response to what the Select Committee considered. Now, because the government intends to use executive powers and not to report at all on some potentially embarrassing matters, it has decided to go through the bill and to remove all those parts which would cause it to have to report on some of the matters which I have referred to, and that means reporting holistically on all of the matters relating to environmental reporting as they relate to each other, as well as reporting on specific domains and topics in the bill. And that's the major defect as regards Clause 3 as I see it. So this pathetic new Section 3, in my view, is not a valid purpose statement at all.